Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's another week of the Screen Sermon Podcast, and it's the Boon. And I'm here with Inky.
Yo!
And you are all in luck because we charged our Sex Robotica unit between episodes. SR, how are you?
I'm happy to be back. That's a handle. It's sure something.
I figured instead of having to say Sex Robotica every time, I'd just refer to you as the SR unit. But you all know what it means.
From Robot Chicken.
That's right. Look that up in your GIFs right now if you don't know what he's talking about. So this week, we're gonna kind of go back to the VvV concept, version versus version, which I had a blast doing last time, talking about the 1958 Fly versus the 1986 Fly, comparing them, talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, what worked and what didn't work. We're going to do that again, but this time we are going to talk about the 2002, I would say for the time, a pretty seminal horror film in terms of that kind of set the tone for what horror would look like for a chunk of that decade, the aughts, and then of course, so that film that I'm referring to is The Ring, and then we will be comparing that to the film that kind of spawned it, and that would be 1998's Japanese horror film Ringu, or just Ring, but of course Americanizing it. We're going to go with Ringu. So yeah, we're going to talk about how alike these films are, because I do think they have a lot of similarities, but they're also quite different as well. So I wanted to start off with SR because you've been talking to us in the chat as well as pre-pod when we were kind of preparing to start here. This isn't even the original film in terms of the Japanese version. So there was another Ring film prior to the 1998 one that everybody's so familiar with. Is that right?
Yeah, the first adaptation of the book was a 1995 film called Ring by Chisui Takagawa, if I pronounce that right.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, that the original source material was a novel. I forgot to mention that. I think that came out in, 91 or something like that?
Pretty early, yeah.
I found that The Ring is like essentially what the Japanese equivalent of what like Friday the 13th is here, because of how much media that there is about it. Because there's the book series, which is, I want to say 5 novels, and then there's a manga, a television show, there's the Japanese films, the American films, the Korean film.
There's a Korean version?
Yeah, so the Japanese films crossed over with the other major J-horror franchise, Ju-on, and the Korean film had crossovers with a Chinese film franchise called Bunshin Saba. And I just saw that there was a couple other crossovers, which may or may not be official, but just Chinese crossovers with the South Korean version.
So the
weird.
Korean version of a Japanese horror film had a crossover with a Chinese film.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm tracking.
There's a lot, apparently, that I really need to delve into further.
Well, and so, we kind of busted it up into different categories last time, and we would start with one and then kind of move on to the other. But first of all, we always want to provide context. So, Inky, if you could give me an idea in terms of when did these two films kind of enter into your life? Did you see them when they came out? Did you see them prior to the concept for this episode? When did you kind of interact with them first?
So I saw The Ring having no idea at first that it was adapted from a Japanese film, or a Japanese book, I suppose, whichever one they took more material from. Don't remember why. It was just in that early kind of teenage period where I just kind of wanted to see whatever I could with my friends. And it looked like a pretty thrilling, wild ride, and indeed it was. This is a really dumb thing, but I saw this with one of my best buddies, Kevin, and I wanted something to eat, but I didn't quite have enough for popcorn. and I don't know if they still even do this, but they have these big pickles. So that's all I had. I had one big pickle, no drink, going to see The Ring. And yeah, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, in the story portion here. But that first big like oh shit moment when like the sound picks up and then goes dead, I just happened to take a giant bite right as that happened. So like the theater went quiet and then, and I was like, oh shit. So I kind of ruined that moment for the theater, I think. But
We're going a different direction.
No. Well,
Sounds like a Vlasic ad.
Yeah, right. But no, in spite of that, though, like I honestly, it was a movie that really got to me. There's like a small handful of horror movies that really like kind of fuck with me after the fact.
Yeah,
I find most of them have to do something with ghosts, which is weird because I haven't been a person of say religion or spirituality for quite some time, but they still kind of fuck with me. I don't know why. So yeah, I mean, it was one of those that, as I said, had some really killer moments, some really amazing filmmaking, and I always like kind of kept somewhere in my top 10 or 20. You know, kind of like went down as I saw more horror movies as I got a little bit older, but
sure.
And also one of the first ones I ever knew of that was adapted from, say, a film from a different nation. I wasn't too aware of that fact. And again, became more and more aware of how often we've done that in America as I learned a little bit more about film. Weird thing, though, I don't know if I'd actually watched The Ring in total since that time. But I must have been like 16 or something. Yeah. And I realized that as I was watching, there was a whole lot of things I forgot, like actors and just all kinds of little moments on this rewatch. And Ring, or Ringu, I had not actually watched until, I guess it was about a week or so ago, just for this podcast. So that was totally new to me.
SR, what about you? When did you first interact with these films, or was it the podcast that kind of made it happen?
Oh, I saw The Ring as a kid at some point, just from getting it from Blockbuster. And then I thought that I had never seen Ringu before, but I was mistaken and it was Ju-on that I've never seen before. So I have seen this, because when I watched it I was like, oh yeah, I remember these points. So I just mixed up which J-horror I'd never seen before. And
gotcha.
I believe Ringu is my first J-horror. I want to say that. I might be misremembering, but I think it was, because I remember watching it sometime after seeing the original The Ring. And I don't think I saw The Ring until not to get back into this like what we did with the Scream episode, but I think it was Scary Movie that made me watch fucking The Ring in the first place. Scary Movie 3. Because I was into horror and stuff, but there was a lot, because growing up I watched a lot of horror from other decades, like 80s and 90s, rather than watching it like as it came out. But then, you know, you're at a sleepover and you put on fucking Scary Movie and then you're like, alright, well what's this based on? Because I want to get what the hell they're talking about. Yeah. So, yeah. That's the same reason I saw Scream. It was because of these damn movies.
That's amazing.
I kind of feel you, man, because honestly, for as many movie moments I saw in The Simpsons first, you know, before actually seeing those movies, and also I probably saw Young Frankenstein about 5 times before I saw the original Frankenstein.
Yeah, okay.
That's how I feel with a lot of things.
Yeah,
like I could probably go like pound for pound. I could name you the whole plot of Terminator, but I've never seen Terminator, so.
So similar to Cody, I saw The Ring when it came out in theaters. So I was 16, I think, at the time. I was in high school and went and watched it. I was living in Miami at the time, too, which was an interesting time in my life. But I didn't know anybody in Miami, so I used to just go to the movie theater by myself. And so that was kind of when the Boon's whole interest in films started. I was basically going and seeing everything at the theater, and then after that, shortly after that, I met Cody, and a bunch of the other gang. I'm sorry, Inky and a bunch of the other gang who turned me on to a lot of different things about film or a lot of different filmmakers and stuff that I had never thought about even encounter. It never occurred to me to watch their movies, and so I needed people to give me that push. And so The Ring happened to be one of those films that I went and watched by myself. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's certainly I think one of the big hitters from that era, when everything kind of turned to more ghost stories. Ghost stories became the hot thing shortly after, kind of that slasher genre took a dive and things like that. And this one I thought was really effective and similar to Inky as well. I had never watched Ringu until we talked about doing this episode. I was aware of it. I was familiar with the fact that The Ring was based off of an original work from Japan, but I had never watched it. And beyond that, I didn't know that it was based on a movie that was actually a remake of an attempt to make it as it was, the 95 to the 98 one. So, and similar to SR, I've never read the book, or I don't even know if it's in English, to be honest. Is it?
There's a translation out.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know. I dig it. I think it's an effective. Setting. I think it's the whole premise of it works. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of break them down and talk about them. So I was thinking we would start with The Ring, if that's okay with everybody else. Only because I have a feeling that from an audience perspective, and I don't mean to demean anyone, I'm assuming the American one, it being the film that it was, is the one that people are more familiar with. So I thought starting with that one would make more sense. Does that make sense to you two?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I had a few things, just a handful of factoids that I wanted to drop. And so this is a Gore Verbinski film, which is something I didn't realize. That completely went over my head back in the day when I saw it, because I don't think I was too familiar with his work anyway. For the listeners out there, this is the guy that did the first 3 Pirates films. This is the guy that did Cure for Wellness with Dane DeHaan. The Lone Ranger with Armie Hammer and Johnny Depp. He did Rango, another Johnny Depp. He's clearly got a Johnny Depp thing. Oh, that's right. Gore Verbinski did Mouse Hunt. How could I forget? This was the highest grossing horror remake until it came out in 2017. This made a boatload of money. This was more than 2 million DVD copies sold in its first 24 hours. So once they put it on sale, people ate this shit up. Like I mentioned before, it came out in 2002. It came out around Halloween. It was mid-October. They made it on a $48 million budget, and it grossed over $250 million worldwide. And another fun little fact, the production budget for this at $48 million was 40 times higher than the production budget for Ringu. Ringu was basically made for about 1 point something million bucks, and I think it was the director that footed most of that. So this was a huge film at the time. In 2002, this was an enormous film. And so with that came some interesting choices in terms of casting. From what I understand, they specifically wanted to keep stars out of it. And from what I read, for example, they had a bunch of pretty well-known folks read for the part of Rachel, i.e. Jennifer Connelly, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kate Beckinsale. They all read for it and were actually offered the part, and each one of them turned it down for one reason or another. I think Brian Cox is probably, at least for the time, Brian Cox is probably the biggest star that's associated with this film. Naomi Watts has since become something of a star.
Naomi Watts had kind of just broke. I mean, I think probably her most known movie up to that was how am I going to forget the name of this? It's one of my favorites. David Lynch's. I always say the wrong title. It's not. Yes, I was going to say Inland Empire when I think of it, but yeah, Mulholland Drive. It was weird. When I was rewatching this time, I honestly thought, I was like, this is one of Naomi Watts' early movies. She'd been acting since like 86 or something.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, she's aged so little.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't expect her to even be old enough to have been acting at that point. I'll say, I think Adam Brody, maybe, was the OC a thing by that point? Or was that a little too early?
I'm not familiar at all with that show, so I'm not sure. But yeah, he's another recognizable face in there. But he obviously came along around that time, I would assume.
No, this was right before OC hit, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
This is where they found him.
Yeah. As they find so many actors. Kevin Bacon. Who else? There's a few others. Who am I thinking of from Dream Warriors? Arquette.
Patricia.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Nightmare.
From the first one.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, people get Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
The New Generation, yep.
Or 4. Wait, no, Viggo Mortensen was in... He was in the same one as Matthew McConaughey, wasn't he?
Really? Viggo's in that too?
Yeah, he's one of the family members as well, and one of them, I can't remember which one though. Him and Matthew McConaughey might be in different ones.
Okay.
Ooh, that's gonna mess with me now. Anyway, we'll have to circle back. So last time, the way that we did this was we kind of took one and we started talking about one of the categories. And writing, as we pointed out pre-pod, writing has a tendency to take a while. So did we want to start with writing and specifically kind of zero in on the writing from 2002's The Ring? Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, SR, can you take it away?
I've noticed that most of because the plots are so similar, being from the same source material, mine are kind of like, there's so much overlap between them when I talk about writing. So if that's okay, then I could do that. But if you want to save that, if you want to save me for the, all right. But I say if you wanted to save me for the transition into Ringu, that's fine. But all right.
Nah.
So one of the things that I really like about these movies is that how similar they are, but they do things differently to adapt to the cultural norms of the places that they're from. What the hell was her name? Rachel.
Uh-huh.
So in the original, not the original, in the American Ring, it tends to go into that like 2000s horror route, where when everything starts happening, nobody believes her, and they have to go through that whole rigmarole with no, it's real, trust me, and get through all that, which I'm not a fan of, because like it's a very 2002 film, you know. It's like straight off of I mean, I would argue that The Ring brought horror back from the slump that Scream caused in the 90s, with everything being all meta and everything, because Scream kind of fucked over horror hard. Everything was Scream, and this being the first like major import from Japan in terms of horror, really brought everything back. But you see those tropes. So in this, it's like, oh well, there's a cursed videotape, whatever. It's like, no, which is it's fair response to have. Whereas in the original, the Japanese version, it's immediately believed. Ryuji's like, no, yeah, I get it. Especially since in the Japanese version, everybody's got fucking superpowers.
Yeah, everybody's a medium.
And in this one, it's more played straight, because I'd still argue that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Where if you watch like our even our cartoons, everything's a certain way. Whereas in Japan, it's just like throw shit, see what sticks.
Yeah.
So there's that. They both have the same themes, with them being about technology and being wary of it, old versus new. But
kind of like this show.
Yeah. I mean, that's the concept for the... This is one of the original things I thought of when we started doing V versus VvV.
Yeah.
Ju-on as well, which I'm sure we'll get to eventually.
Sure, yeah, because I haven't seen the American or the Japanese version of that film.
I just saw one of the Japanese versions. I didn't realize it wasn't the first. I saw Ju-on the Grudge, and apparently Ju-on the Curse is the first and the better one.
Oh,
and I still haven't seen the American one because I heard it's garbage. But anyways,
yeah, I heard it's trash.
One thing that the 2002 version does differently is it establishes different rules. Whereas the Japanese one, you have everyone being like a psychic of some sort. In this one, it's like, no, shit can just come out of the TV. Because there's a scene where Rachel pulls like a fly out.
Yeah.
And so it foreshadows the ending, which we'll get to. With, the thing that the fucking movie's known for.
You know.
There, I've read essays about these films in the past, but that I can't quote the name of because I don't remember who it was long ago who wrote them. But it was essentially an analysis saying all the reasons why these films worked and why this is a more guttural scare than some other films.
Mm-hmm.
And one of which being that you can't watch it passively. You're forced into being a participant. Mm-hmm. So, like, they play the tape, right? And you watch what's on the tape while watching the movie. So
well, that's true. Okay.
You have that too, and if you're in the if it's 2002, and you watch like that scene where they're watching the tape, and your phone rings, it's gonna scare the shit out of you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's one of the films where you can't like escape from reality. You're kind of put in the same position as the main characters, and I think both of the films do it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Also, the Japanese version, because I'm kind of flip flopping, like I said, because it's particular moments that it's easy to, Yeah. Ringu is a lot more in terms of like what causes, people to behave the way they do. It's more nurture, where Sadako is all tortured and she's mistreated, and she ends up essentially evil because of the things that have happened to her. Whereas Samara is written in a way to where she's killing horses and causing pain just because she's like, I want to, but I don't want to, but I feel like I have to. She's more straight up evil.
Yeah.
And that may work more for us as an American audience, because that's, straight up evil was more accustomed, but I prefer the writing being more ambiguous and like this is caused by trauma, and that manifests itself in the form of this revenge tape.
Right.
I feel like the original does it, and as you can see, in terms of writing, I'm putting a point in the Ringu category, because I'm kind of getting both out of the way now, just in the way that I have these meshed in my head.
I was going to suggest, honestly, I was having the same thing when writing notes down. Do we want to just go each category instead of going category 1, film 1, then category 1, film 2?
Sure, absolutely.
Just kind of blend it right together?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a hard time, putting a gap there and separating.
For the record, but before SR Unit goes on with writing more, I just wanted to point out that I appreciate your crack fucking research of telling me you read some articles, but you can't tell me where the hell they are, so that we can provide them for the listeners. Thank you for that.
You ever fucking
Sources say
you ever read something somewhere and you're like, that was really neat, but then you can't go back and find where the fuck that's from, but you're like, I really want to talk about it.
Yeah. So that was your version of citing your sources, and saying, I did read this article. I don't know who wrote it.
There's a little annotation at the end of my essay that says, just trust me.
That's awesome.
I'll try...
Anyway, take it away, sorry.
I'll try to find what that's from after we record, but I can't promise anything.
Thanks.
You do your Google search history, or is there too much there?
Thanks, Dad.
I have search history because I use DuckDuckGo.
Oh.
It's not because of that.
Is.
My wife came in and made a jerking off gesture at me.
That's hysterical.
Not
that, a robot with a wife.
Oh,
it's amazing.
It's a washing machine.
Tell that gynoid get out the room. We're recording here.
And I can hashtag it again. Thanks, Inky.
Got you, Boon.
Pretty sure that's how we got the 500 views on YouTube last time. Hashtag gynoid.
Nothing can help Spider-Verse.
Yeah, fuck Spider-Verse.
You're gonna get some shit for saying that.
I'm just saying, gynoid is why the people showed up. It had nothing to do with Spider-Verse.
There's a lot of people going into YouTube and then typing. They're using the hashtag function, and they're specifically typing hashtag gynoid.
100%.
Gynoid puts butts in seats, baby. What can I say?
I think we have another candidate for the Screen Sermon merch store. The gynoid t-shirt.
More shit.
I'm a gynoid.
Yeah. You just gotta keep harassing Kyle to make different. And mind you that Kyle doesn't have the time to listen to every podcast or pick up on every reference. So I'm like, Kyle, draw my uncle as a baboon. Kyle, draw a fucking robot woman. and he one day he's gonna go, isn't this a film podcast? What the hell was I saying?
You're talking about the Ring and Ringu and
draw a man with
themes.
glasses, but with tentacles.
Can you draw a baby Cthulhu, please?
Yeah.
Baby Cthulhu. Yeah, right. Writing. Writing.
The writing of 2 films.
Deep critical analysis. Go.
I think it's more interesting having Sadako being labeled as a monster because of the abilities she has, and then getting a lot of shit for it, and then gradually becoming the way she is at the end, rather than just straight up being evil. That feels like a more well-written character with more dimension than just like having. I mean, this came out pre Rob Zombie Halloween, but this similar to the way that Myers was in that, which I didn't particularly care for, even though I'll defend that movie. Where they're just out the pussy killing people.
Was it a sequel to It's Alive?
Yeah. They came out the pussy drawing fucking Mozart and shit.
Drawing Mozart?
Come on, Mikey, I was good to you.
Wait, how does one draw Mozart?
That's a bit from fucking Aaron Hansen. It's not a me thing.
Oh, okay.
Is that Ego Raptor's real name?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure I'm getting the reference.
So yeah, I like that the character has a actual motivation behind it, other than because I'm the villain and that's the way shit works. Get over it, kid. But
drink your juice.
Another reason
right.
I'll put a point in the Ringu category for writing is because this being a 2002 film, The Ring, it's got it's filled and littered and shit all over with 2002 era dialogue, and it's just the worst fucking thing in the world. It's like it's probably one of the worst eras in dialogue writing, in my opinion, for film. It's like fucking porn parody tier terrible.
Which parts are you talking about? You having a quick example? I didn't quite pick up on
I didn't
that.
write down any quotes, just the interaction.
Oh
with
my
the
god.
The interaction with the character.
Trust me.
Yeah, that's my whole.
I'm a
Trust me, it's
robot.
bad.
I'm a robot. I can't lie. It's in the fucking.
I am Wikipedia.
It's in the laws.
I'm a human search engine. I just don't know shit.
Yeah, what are the laws of robotics? One of them's I cannot tell a lie.
Yeah, one of them's just trust me.
They were all built by Jake Roberts. That's a deep cut for you wrestling people out there.
It's also to do with line delivery. And to be fair to Ringu, line delivery is kind of hard to criticize when you don't speak the language of the film. Like, you can get the cadences and everything, but I don't know the specifics of even the translations are for us and not necessarily direct. Like, something can mean something else, and we just do our best to be like, oh, that means this. So there's that little caveat when trying to analyze that type of thing, because it's subtitles. You're reading it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the dialogue. I mean, it did have this neat bit at the beginning, which is not subtle in its themes at all, when they're bitching about the TV and like radio waves in the 2002 version.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's I want to say it's one of the most prevalent examples of techno horror that I could think of in the era before Screen Life films like Unfriended and Host and everything, where it's like, be wary of technology. There's plenty of that before, but it had less modern technology. Kind of hard to describe. Like there's plenty of sci-fi, but it's not like be afraid of your fucking VCR or be afraid of your phone.
Phonograph.
You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm trying to say? You picking up what I'm putting down? You smelling what I'm stepping in?
Your phonograph is out to murder you.
Actually, I think that's a fucking episode of Creepshow or some shit. Or
that wouldn't surprise
fucking
me.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? It sounds like. So yeah, I think that there's a lot more subtlety in the writing of the original that's not as present in the remake, and I think it works better, and I think there's another layer of the characters, and I'm more of a fan of the dialogue that I didn't write down.
Trust me.
Yeah,
It was better.
That's the merch. It's a fucking. It's just a line that says "Trust me," and then
Trust me, I'm a gynoid.
above it is a picture of a giant. It looks like a fucking propaganda from like They Live or some shit.
Oh,
A fucking
I was
robot.
gonna say
With
I was
the
gonna say it's just Rosie from the Jetsons.
Is that my avatar?
May as well be now.
I do love the idea of the SR unit presenting as female.
Oh,
It's amazing.
You know what? Ever since I took up the handle, I never thought anything other than it, given the fact that it's a gynoid.
Excellent. So then the SR unit is a gynoid.
Yeah, sure.
That's fucking canon, people. right, okay, so you're giving the point to Ringu, and I just wanted to make sure Ken is
Ringu
Inky's
because
go.
fucking trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. So 1 up for Ringu for you. Inky, take it away.
Yeah, so a lot of similar points here. First one, just to tag up from what Josh said, I did definitely prefer, I'm going to say it incorrectly here, but Sadako versus Samara, only for the fact that, yeah, she did have a little bit of more of a reason for her vengeance, it felt like. Although Samara did have a little bit of dimension to her in the fact that she didn't seem happy that she was doing these things, but she was still just kind of had this, insatiable malevolence in her. And the reason I think that Sadako's what happens to her and the reason that she is a malevolent, or not malevolent, an avenging spirit, let's say, was what worked for me the best in Ringu. Probably best overall, honestly. But structurally, yeah, very, very similar. I thought Ringu did a great job just going A to B to C with this kind of mystery plot.
Yeah.
Knowing how to dole out those little, those different puzzle pieces. Although it's not that complex of a mystery. But again, it keeps you wanting to go to the next scene, which is nice.
Yeah.
Altogether, I thought scene for scene, it's a little bit drier than The Ring.
Yeah.
The Ring had a lot of great little, single scenes. And again, this feels more like if you had, a small committee of writers come in and kind of punch up, maybe. One of my favorites was when Naomi Watts' character goes to the B&B where the videotape was.
Yeah.
And it's this, tiny little scene. And again, there's a character that doesn't have to be anything but an information giver. But he's got this little card trick.
Yeah.
and he messes it up the first time. And he even goes, "Damn." And that had been enough, right? Here's a character, we gave him a desire, and he's not that good at it yet. But he keeps going. He tries it a second time, messes it up again, finally gets it the third time.
Yeah.
One scene is its own little story almost, you know what I mean? I thought that was nice. And there was a lot more of those in The Ring. Nice little, kind of flavor, if you will. There's another one later when, another tape scene, when Noah, the absentee father, up until now, is going to look for the tapes of Samara in the hospital. And it's such a perfect little comedy scene, because the guy is talking to him, and he's really laying down the law. The guy that watches, keeps an eye on all the records in the hospital. And he's like, "I don't take shit." He's just really letting him know, I run a tight ship here, okay? And then he gets to the tape, and it's empty, and he goes, "Okay, now I'm mad."
That guy was awesome.
Yes, I love that delivery. And again, it was just enough. It didn't take me out of the movie. All the intensity of it still remains, but there were nice little levity moments within those scenes. So on that front, I liked Ring a little bit better. But the big deciding factor for me, and why I'm giving the point to Ringu, spoilers, is I thought it really nailed its premise better. Yeah. And what it was when you get to the end and you realize that Sadako will not kill people who pass this tape along, which would be enough to just be any old kind of curse story, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what you realize, again, she wants people to know what happened to her. An injustice was done to her, not just the murder, but the fact that it was, unknown. Justice was never done. And so the fact that passing her story along and letting more people know what has happened to her will pacify her a little bit towards you, which is a theme I think honestly feels more prescient nowadays than it did in 2002.
Sure.
Of all the different things that we've seen come out. And again, in large part because of media. We now have so much access to that, video and audio and everything. Anybody can kind of get a better record if they are being treated very poorly or flat out abusively. So that part, and again, the real difference to me too, though, was in The Ring, they kind of spoon feed you too much at the end. Yeah. And they also, as kind of in line with what Josh said as well, they really kind of they want to end on that kind of American horror movie note where it's still kind of oh shit foreboding at the end, like what's gonna happen to the next person we show.
Yeah.
You know, and like, oh no. Whereas at the end of Ringu, I really got that feel of like, oh, this is why Sadako wants people to see this. This is why she's still angry. And I mean, who could blame her, honestly?
Right.
2 more quick things. I really like the way that Ringu did its dates. Small little touch there, but it gave you specific days, not just day 1. It was like, I don't remember the exact ones. Just trust me. It was like August 30th. Or now I'm on the stand.
You're not nearly as reliable as a robot, okay?
Yeah, who could blame it? We squids are, you know, kind of.
He's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to believe me. I'm just there. But yeah, like I like that a lot better because it put you in the story more than just like day 1, day 2. Now I know I'm being told a story, you know?
Sure.
Also, nice thing that's done is this is something I've only noticed in a few movies. I'll have to check out and see if there's more that maybe I'm just forgetting. But when you set up a certain sequence, Ex Machina did this, and I forgot to mention it in that episode. But whether it's the dates themselves, you have what you expect to be a specific number. Like in this case, it's 7. Another thing, they just have to fucking spoon feed us in the American version. That's how long it was for her. Oh God, that's how long she was in the well. Oh, thank you. But yeah, when you set that up and you have that expectation and then you subvert it, it's very cool to me. There's another movie does that amazingly. I won't tell you about because I don't want to spoil it because it's actually a pretty awesome climax. Yeah, and we get this again in Ex Machina, where the last session is well past the point where this experiment's fallen apart and there are no other characters. And you realize, oh, that's this last session, is her actually amongst the humans. So I thought that was a really cool part. And again, another part I thought Ringu carried a little bit better. So yeah, I'm going Ringu for this point.
Okay. So I watched The Ring with my wife, which was good. It was a good time, and she made sure to kind of bring some questions to the table that I wanted to bring to the panel today that we could discuss these. First of all, I thought, similar to Inky, that there was some punchy moments in The Ring that I really appreciated. You know, and part of the stuff that Noah was providing for me was his interaction with the guy who was in charge of all the records and files when they first start communicating, and he's trying to pass himself off as being Mr. Morgan or Richard Morgan, Samara's dad. And the guy is just sitting there and he's like, "What is your secret, man?" And all this other stuff. And of course, Noah's feeding into it. And then he just completely deadpans him and he's like, "Let's cut the shit." Like, we both know that's not who you are. And my other favorite line from him in this was when Rachel first introduces the tape to Noah. She goes into the explanation about the lore behind it and stuff like that. And he goes, "Well, we watched it. We're hanging." I love that was his explanation. Yeah, so as far as tone is concerned, as far as from my viewing experience, Ringu presents more as a mystery film to me. With, of course, there are some horror notes in there. There's a monster, there are deaths and things like that, but overall there's an overarching mystery. The Ring is a horror film that happens to feature a mystery in it, but it goes out of its way to present, you know, like you said, small scenes here and there where they're still reminding you of the danger that is being posed by Samara. Like the scene where Rachel's coughing up the hair with the electrode little pads, and then she sees Samara sitting in a chair, and Samara comes up and grabs her on the arm. They do that scene in Ringu as well, but it is presented in a much different way in The Ring, where you get this horrendous, like, you think for some reason Rachel's choking to death, and then that leads into the scene where Samara's sitting in a chair in a stark white room, and like you realize it's this vision that Rachel's having and things like that. When it happens to Reiko in Ringu, it's more, I mean, how did it even happen? Didn't the hand just kind of reach out and touch her arm? Like while she was doing something innocuous related to it? Like the whole middle section of Ringu is this mystery where Ryuji and Reiko are trying to get to the bottom of things. Rachel is on a similar journey, but there are just more beats in there where it's reminding you, like, hey, this is a horror movie, so we're going to scare you. We're going to give you this this tension here. And I think that may also just be a difference in filmmaking style, in that, the Japanese filmmakers don't feel the need to constantly come back and beat you over the head with certain things. But I guess for me, and from my viewing experience, I liked it. I liked that every once in a while you would pull me back in and show me something unnerving or do something else that kind of, I don't know, gave me pause, even further. I like that we end up revisiting Becca's character, because that's also worth mentioning, is the ring is longer pretty significantly, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's a good 15 minutes to 20 minutes longer, because the ring is almost 2 hours long, and I think Ringu is right at like 89 minutes. So they spend more time with certain things. And I know that there was a whole subplot about Becca. Becca is, I forget her name in Ringu. But I have it here. So Becca is the gal in the beginning. Katie, it's her friend that she has in the opening scene of the film. And Katie, of course, is killed by Samara, and Becca disappears from the movie. Honestly, prior to Katie being killed, I put that in my notes. I said, where the hell did Becca go? Because she kind of disappears. I have no clue where Becca is when Katie comes back up the steps from getting spooked in the kitchen, and then sees all the water coming out from the underneath of her door, opens the door, and then she's dead. Like, where the fuck did Becca go that whole time? And then you end up checking in with her later, and she's in a facility, for basically the breakdown that she had witnessing her friend die. And now it appears, and my wife had to point this out for me, that it appears that she has developed some kind of phobia toward TVs and stuff, because when they walk with her, they have a curtain between her and the like little TV room and stuff like that. So I just thought it was cool that you check back in with that character, and Rachel gets an opportunity to speak with her and gather some info from her. And the experience clearly, and I thought this was a cool nod to Ringu, the experience clearly did something to her in a supernatural way, because Rachel touches her on the hand, and she's able to know that Rachel has 4 days left. But how would she be able to do that? And I know that every character pretty much in Ringu has some kind of power, some kind of spiritual power that they don't quite explain. So I really enjoyed that.
Place in the Marvel Universe.
What was it?
It secretly takes place in the Marvel Universe.
Everybody's a mutant.
I'll say, like, at the end, you think it's going to be Samara showing down, and then all of a sudden Carrie White shows up.
At the end of The Ring, Samara gets a visit from Samuel Jackson saying he needs him for a team.
Putting a team together.
I'd watch the shit out of that, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
We still need a creepy little girl.
So yeah, I mean, from a writing perspective, the way that the story kind of plays out, the way that it breaks down, they are very similar beat for beat. But for the fact that I still felt like I was watching a horror movie the whole time, for me, The Ring is the one that gets the point. I liked the way that the story was put together. I liked the way that it was composed. There was a few moments in there where I felt like we were kind of wasting time. Like the whole horse on the ferry scene was kind of unnecessary. And it really pissed me off to Rachel, because at one point, aren't you just like, I should probably leave this fucking horse alone? But she keeps trying to mess with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, leave it alone, man.
That was sorry to cut in, but that was a scene I forgot about. A scene I forgot about until right when it was about to happen, and I started going, "Oh no!" Because I hate seeing animals have harm on or receive harm in a film.
Yeah.
And weirdly though, I remembered it differently. The way I remembered it, it jumped off like the top deck and just landed on the bottom. You know what I mean? Like, like somebody like falling off a skateboard down a flight of stairs or something, which is really awful. So like the way it actually like finished out that scene, I did not remember. But no, you're
like
totally
when it's
right.
Floating in the water and crying and stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty awful. But
it was.
But no, I see your point though too. Yeah, like the opening of it feels a little bit like just back away.
Yeah, what's the matter with you?
Horses
she keeps
don't
trying to reach in and shit.
Horses don't like people that know Samara. Okay, it's a beef. It's a jet shark thing. Okay.
You were the chick you came with.
That's right. Just like, read the room, man. Like, it doesn't want you around. Just walk away. But so Ellie had some great questions, and I wanted to put these here after we talked about writing so that we could debate these. Ellie's first question: when we revisit the cabin, prior to revisiting the cabin, Rachel finds a bunch of photographs in Katie's bedroom, one of which was taken at the cabin. Ellie's question was, and this is there might be an obvious answer here. Ellie's question was, who the hell took the picture of the 4 kids?
I hadn't even thought of that.
Because they always talk about how there's 4 kids and they all died on the same night. They all watched the tape together in the cabin. So you immediately go to this mindset of, was it another friend that they had that took this picture? I think the immediate answer would probably be the guy that runs the place.
Well, maybe,
but I don't know.
They would have had 7 days before they died, so there's a chance they could have developed a film before they died.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that was a good one.
Yeah.
I was like, who did take that picture?
Hadn't even crossed my mind, but that'd be my best bet, I guess. They took the picture before it actually kind of struck them, I guess.
This is another how did he get Sydney's mom's voice moment.
Yeah. Yes. How did they get it? Another one. Let me see. What is all the freaky shit outside of the TV if Samara hasn't crawled out of the TV yet?
The freaky shit outside of the TV?
Yeah. So like any freaky shit that happens outside of the TV prior to the end of the film when Samara walks out of the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from? If she
that shit can come out of it?
I guess so. Like when she pulls the fly out of it.
Yeah, or like you mentioned earlier, where she pulls like the long the thing out, like the diode thing out of her mouth. I don't know.
It's still
my short answer: ghosts.
Ghost stuff.
Weird shit be happening.
I'm still not a fan of the fact that they set that up in the American version, because that in the original, that's like the fucking coup de grace of the movie. I don't see the need to foreshadow that. I think it works better having it be like, wait, well, what the fuck's happening? Why is this bitch... Cindy, the TV is leaking!
I mean, I guess the implication, like in the beginning of the film, when there's a bunch of water and shit coming out from underneath Katie's door, the implication is that Samara had already come out of the TV and was waiting in the room for her.
Well, that brings up an important point, though, because I'd always heard this. I'm still not that familiar with J-horror movies, but a lot of times the ghosts, and namely the girl ghosts in them, there's usually water around. Mm-hmm. As we know from one of... Wait, was it RRR or one of the Bahubalis? I can't remember. As we know, I like movies with water in them. I like rain. I like all kinds of shit.
Yeah,
I like wet films.
There was that awesome rain scene in RRR.
That's right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But yeah. In Ringu, I didn't find it as wet as I would have expected. Conversely, The Ring, and again, they just couldn't have picked a better place than Seattle for this because it never stops fucking raining. As somebody who has lived in the Pacific Northwest, I can't confirm. But I found this short thing up. I might even have the thing. I might even have a reference. No, I do not. Okay, so trust me on this one. But
theme of the episode.
Trust me, I'm a gynoid.
I saved a whole paragraph, but I did not actually reference anything. Okay. But yeah, there's old stories, ghost stories, called they would refer to as I think the Kaidan, and very often they were either women or say like peasants, like lower class folks who had something done wrong to them, and typically again they were this kind of avenging spirit, and a lot of times water was a present element because I believe it was in Buddhism where water is sort of like an avenue to the underworld. So that's why you see the water before like one of these ghostish people show up. Okay. So yeah, there's a little lesson that I learned and I didn't bother to write down. So
it's also pertinent to point out that I believe in the sequels, so like the Ring 2 and then Rings, the one that came out semi-recently, I think there are some references made that Samara's actual father is some kind of sea god.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
what I heard. That's what I read, and something that I also didn't write down.
Trust me.
I'm a gynoid. We're changing the name of the fucking podcast.
Trust me. That should be my shirt. Trust me, I'm Eldritch.
Yeah, of course. An octopus person likes movies that are filled with water.
That's right.
So on the nose.
We don't have noses, we got beaks.
Fair play. What's the next one? Let's see. What if you close your eyes while watching the tape?
I think
do you still get a call?
The fact that it's playing would be enough. In fact, she might be more pissed, like, motherfucker, I'm trying to tell you what happened to me, and you're going fucking... You can't take fucking
you're being a
15
dick.
minutes out of your life to watch a fucking student film about a well and fucking horses and shit.
You died tonight.
Next one.
You don't get 7 days.
Fucking ghosts leaving voicemails, so does Samara wait for the beep?
I asked that too, because especially at Ringu, it rang so long, I'm like, they don't even have an answering machine? Yeah, like, no, that's a good point too. Yeah, if I just deleted the voicemail without listening to it, what would happen?
And the final one.
Just be caught off guard and fucking killed anyway.
Right, you wouldn't get the heads up.
Yeah.
Last one. If you watch the film again, does it increase your time?
No.
The whole point is that you show it to the next person.
I would argue
that's
what you would probably be supposed to do. Because you're supposed to find out all the little details and bullshit in it to fucking decode this cryptic ass thing where if she could make a fucking phone call, she could just tell you, hey, yo, here's the shit that went down. Without giving you a fucking cube of shit to fucking figure out.
I want her to talk like that too. Hey yo, listen. You ever see some fucking bullshit happen to me? My fucking father.
Samara's played by Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
Check this shit out.
Andrew Dice Clay is the first time I heard women's breasts referred to as sweater puppets. That was his addition to my life. Thanks, Andrew.
I prefer chesticles.
So yeah, those were some questions that Ellie had while we were watching the film. I had to write them down because I wanted to bring them to the show. So thanks a bunch for that if you're listening. And so to me, The Ring gets the point, and I think I'm cheating a little bit, but it's because I came into it wanting to watch a horror movie. To me, The Ring is a horror movie, and Ringu was less so, and so I like what they did with it, and I like the stuff that you were bringing up, Inky, that the kind of the punchy parts of the script and things like that they threw in there. I thought that they worked really well. What's funny about punchy?
It reminds me of the Fun with Ahmed Johnson.
Got to figure out
There's
another way to
something
describe that.
Yeah, there you got something to link now.
Yeah. No actual evidence of what we're talking about.
No,
But an
this is
Ahmed
funny
Johnson
YouTube
video. Here's
Yeah, I'm Samara.
a-
Check this shit out.
Here's a somewhat known wrestler from the 90s.
Welcome to my episode on the ring. I don't got any evidence to back up my claims. Check out this funny Ahmed Johnson video.
People are like, "Who the fuck is Ahmed Johnson?" All right, let's move right along to characters and performances. Again, I'm cool with just blending the two and kind of comparing them as we go. So, SR, take it away.
I kind of covered this mostly in writing because I feel like all of my issues that I mentioned with it are more so the writing of the dialogue and less so the performing. Because I feel like the actors are all good. It just falls into the 2000 era horror tropes. Like, I don't like that the pre-Samara is, you know, just this. It's the standard cute kid but evil thing. Like everything she said, every sentence she speaks is like, "I'm gonna kill people," or not Mickey Mouse. I think that Yoichi is like a better.
Dead by Dawn! Welcome to prime time, bitch! No, I want Mickey. I want Mickey in all horror movies now. You dirty bird! You dirty birdie!
Oh my god. Ooh.
Alright, Kyle. Get back on the merch. I need Mickey Mouse, but as Samara.
But I do, and I'm sorry. Oh.
Oh, fuck. I like Yoichi more than Aiden, who suffers from kid actor syndrome. Less. I think the characters are more established in Ringu, for the most part. They're like you guys brought up pretty much the fact that there are neat character moments in the ring, and that I like. I just, and maybe it's a cop out because it again it's an issue with like fucking how they're written, and not so much, you know, what they're doing and how they portray it. But yeah, I kind of lean towards Ringu. I'm trying to not get into technical or effects here because there's some more overlap there.
Yeah.
As far as how the Onryo version of Samara and Sadako are, sorry to name drop that. It's just fucking Ghost in Japanese. Vengeance Ghost in Japan.
Okay.
I like the presentation of Sadako more than Samara. And I'll get into that more with effects, I think. Although I might fucking flip it and just say the opposite. But you'll see why.
Okay.
Different aspects that I like of, you know. So, yeah, I don't care for Noah as much as Ryuji. I don't care for Aiden as much as Yoichi, and I feel like the characters, the main characters, are done better in Ringu for me than in the ring, with the exception of our lead characters, though.
Okay.
Because I like Rachel more, just because
Really?
she's more. In the Ringu, there's more of a sense of urgency for me. But
Yeah.
I think that in contrast with the other characters, I think Rachel sort of gives that more. There's more layers to her characters, and you still get that same sense of urgency, even if there is a little bit of other character moments that kind of break up the tension a little bit in the ring. But I do prefer Rachel as a character, being, you know, just a regular Joe than everyone being fucking psychic. Because, you know, I think while it does still have the same sense of urgency, I feel like that sort of is like, well, you can fight it more. You know, there's less helplessness if you have also like the same thing, because
you have power as well.
Ryuji has fucking psychic powers, and Noah doesn't. Noah works at a fucking just a regular job. He's not psychic. There's nothing significant about it.
I think he's a professor or something, which I think like Ryuji is as well.
He's some kind of like video editor.
Yeah, that's what it was. Which is, you know, kind of funny given the themes of the movie.
Yeah, it fits.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the characters are just all around better. I like the opening scene in both, because one of my favorite things that in horror movies is when the film opens and you essentially get the short film before the movie actually starts.
Yeah.
Because to bring up Scream again, that does it. Where in every movie where they're like, all right, well, here's a little bit of tease of what's going to happen later. And not that it doesn't have consequence on the rest of the movie, because it does, but it could be, you know, cut as a standalone thing and still work. And both of these films do that as well. I like the character moments in Ringu better with this, because everything in The Ring feels like it's really fucking just told to you. Like you said, everything is spoon-fed. There's no... It treats the audience like they're stupid. Like, I can't figure out what's going on. And it does that in the dialogue of the characters. Like, oh, well, fucking TVs are bad and they cause cancer, and fucking Al Gore's gonna come out of your TV and beat the shit out of you. And
he's super serial.
Just, you know,
Al Gore climbing out of a well, coming to beat your ass.
Al Gore.
That did it for me.
I don't know. That comes to more personal preference, I think, than anything. It's just, I just simply like how everything is much more up in the air, and since the original books are mystery novels as well as horror, like they're supposed to be, it lets the audience kind of figure shit out, but without telling you straight up this is how it is. And I feel like The Ring does that a lot more, and I'm just not a fan of it. So I give the point for performances and dialogue to Ringu again.
Alrighty, Inky. Follow Al Gore Verbinski.
Another.
That was awesome.
I cannot. We may as well just end the episode right there, honestly.
So why is that Al Gore in the first place?
I don't either, but I liked it.
It was written on the wind, man. It was just there.
It was meant to be.
I think beyond performances, honestly, the heaviest hitter of both movies for me was, I hope I can do this some justice, but Nanako Matsushima, who was our lead in Ring, she had some amazing moments where she was able to switch, say, like, mood or emotion, but, like, do, like, a 10%, 20% change. Like, really, like, subtle choices there, which I really appreciated. And The Ring, in total, is a little bit bigger in terms of their performances.
Yeah.
And which is, they're not, like, ham-bony. They're not silly at all, to me at least. Like, but you can even see it in Brian Cox, which Brian Cox, as I mentioned in the Fly episodes, he's in that Vincent Price territory for me personally. If Brian Cox is on screen, I'm having a great time. no matter what it is. You know what I mean? I like McDonald's commercials now because he voices those fucking things. So,
You loving it?
I am loving it. Ba 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 ba. However they say it, but yeah.
Well, it sounds very loving it.
Oh no, that I am. I'm just. He's much more chill about it on the commercial. That's probably why I'm doing that. But yeah. So she was like a big asset, I think, to Ring. Weirdly, I didn't think I forgot her. I did not. I shouldn't say forgot. I did not know that Hiroyuki Sanada, who a lot of folks I think would know from, I want to say Last Samurai, was in Ringu. And
I love that guy.
I usually love him too, but in this one I just found him kind of flat, kind of dull, honestly. Mm-hmm. I mean, not bad. Like, he felt like the right person for being kind of a shitty absentee father. You know what I mean? But altogether, I just wasn't that interested in him. And I will say too, like kind of a point away from the Ring, similar to, well, the same thing that Josh had mentioned. I thought that it always feels weird to me to hold a performance against a kid. Yeah. In this way, I almost want to blame maybe more like a director, honestly, because what's a kid know, at this point? But the son that they had, Aiden, in the Ring, he's just a little bit too knowing, too grown up. And I mean, this is in the point when we're just only at least one, maybe just only two M. Night Shyamalan movies at this point. And that's kind of a common thing in his earlier movies. You look at, like, say, Haley Joel Osment, and then, like, say, the Culkin in Signs, and I think those are actually really good performances. But those kids that feel a little bit more grown up than you'd expect. So yeah, his was just a little bit too switched on for me. Like when he's like looking at his mom in the eyes and calling her Rachel and everything. Rachel, what's happening? I'm just like, what are we watching now? Like, he felt like he was in a different movie, and I think he would have been good in that movie. It just wasn't this one, Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think just the way Nanako Matsushima was able to play it close to the vest, I completely left out Naomi Watts, who I, again, almost always loved, and had nothing against her performance in this. In fact, I'll give her this really good point. She's an amazing screamer. I know that sounds like kind of a, what'd you call it? Kind of a lowbrow thing to look for in acting, but it's not an easy thing to do.
I watched a lot of that. It's pretty important thing. Like, they're called scream queens for a reason. If you do that piss poor, it while you don't normally think of it, it does affect the movie. Having them,
for sure.
Not, when you have those, like, really, especially like the really guttural ones, it really increases the amount of oh shit in the film.
Yeah, there's a way to go. Yeah, there's a way to go over the top with it too. Yeah, like, either it gets too silly, or other times it gets almost too real. So again, nothing against Naomi Watts. I was just a much bigger fan of our lead in Ring, which is why I give the second point to Ring as well.
I was kind of torn. I think from a character perspective, not so much a performance perspective. I'm not a huge fan of Rachel. And I saw Aiden's behavior and his tendencies and things like that are obviously stemming from the fact that you have a very young mom who is career focused. His dad is not around, so he effectively has to raise himself a lot of the time. And so to me, that seemed to be where this disconnection was, where I don't even refer to her as mom because she's not really like a mother to me that much. She's just more of like a roommate. And so
we're like, I just
friends. Call her, I just call her by her first name. But I also agree that I thought his very, like he's on lithium, he's just so monotone and so, so distant and things at all. And of course you get a sense from him throughout the course of the film that he has abilities in some way. Like when he is just going ham on that drawing pad, drawing the ring, the circles. I remember the sound design behind that being really unnerving, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so yeah, I think it's kind of like a point for point thing. I liked Naomi Watts' performance, but I wasn't a huge fan of the way her character was written. Whereas I liked Reiko in Ring. Ryuji and Noah, I thought that I didn't really notice Hiroyuki Sanada. I thought he was fine for what he had. Of course, this isn't like a big, powerful performance like he would give later on in Last Samurai, or even in this most recent Mortal Kombat film where he plays Scorpion and absolutely kills it. But he's perfectly serviceable in the role, but the character that's written for him, Ryuji, is just so much more capable and so much more... It provides so much more to the plot and so much more to what's going on with the mystery than Noah does. Noah does a few things here and there, but he ends up being more of a comedic side character. And he's presented more as a slacker or a deadbeat. And, you know, somebody who you really shouldn't respect all that much, though you gotta like his arc, because by the end of it, he is fighting for his son's life and ultimately sacrifices his own. So in that one, I would probably give the point to Hiroyuki Sanada as Ryuji. I think that I like the dad in Ringu better. And so that's... And then we have the kids. They both disappear about halfway through the film because they get taken to stay with a relative for a while. Yoichi versus Aiden. Aiden, I think, is more of a focal point in his movie than Yoichi is. Yoichi is literally just kind of the boy that's there. Aiden is a lot more involved in some dialogue pieces and some set moments and things, going up to Katie's bedroom. I know that Yoichi does the same thing. I think it's also a runtime issue where we spend so much more time with the characters in the ring that we're able to see Aiden do a lot more things. I found every time we were looking at Yoichi, it was his mom calling him and saying, "Hey, I'm going to be home late." And that was kind of it. But with Aiden, we got more moments where we're kind of understanding what his day-to-day looks like. And, you know, he's got the drawings at school and Rachel's coming in and she's late and all this kind of stuff. And we kind of get introduced to him more. So I kind of appreciated Aiden more than I did Yoichi. And then I think the final one to kind of bring up is Sadako versus Samara, right? And that's kind of a hard one to do, because in the American film, it's a little girl, and in the Japanese film, it's a grown woman. And so I thought that the performances on both parts, child actor is, you know, limited to a certain extent, did a perfectly serviceable job as a child actor. You know, the way that the character is quote-unquote written, you know, yeah, she's just there to be evil, and there's not a huge reasoning as to why. Other than she may or may not be the progeny of a sea god, I guess, that we find out later on. Whereas you have this whole subplot with Sadako, the experiments that were done, the murder that took place, and she has this drive to make sure to uncover this mystery. And I really appreciate, from a performance angle, what's her name here? Rie Unoue? Probably fucked that up. She's a kabuki actress, which is why a lot of Sadako's movements and things like that are in a very specific and creepy style. For example, as I looked at the end of the film, when Sadako comes out of the TV, they actually had her walking backwards and doing this very kabuki-like performance and kabuki movements, but she walked backwards from the camera back to the well. And then they obviously showed it in reverse, which would then have her coming toward the screen. So it was like double weird. You know, it was backwards and they were showing it to us backwards. And I thought that was a really effective choice. I understand this is technical and I'm sorry. But anyway, so that was performance related, because I thought it was super cool that they brought in a kabuki actress to do that, because she is otherworldly.
No, that totally counts for performance. That's physical performance, which I think gets a lot of short shrift in a lot of movies.
Sure. Well, and maybe I'm just kind of combining them, because the decision to then show it to us,
sure,
in reverse of the reverse, that was obviously a technical choice. But you're right. So I think bringing in a kabuki actress and having these very specific movements for Sadako, so that you're seeing her as an otherworldly thing, I thought that was very effective and better than the child actor that just kind of stands there and then they do the glitchy thing where now she's 4 feet closer to you than she was a minute ago. It's like, that's $48 million budget right there.
Yeah.
This is a performance that's letting you know that this is a ghost, and I thought that was really cool. So, all in all, there was a couple of characters I liked from each, but I think Ringu has the better characters and performances for me. Better writing for me in The Ring, but better characters and performances in Ringu. Even though that's weird, I think that's the way it played out for me.
Let's say quick addendum on what you were saying about the Kabuki actress. Anybody wants to know how hard it is to shoot something like that for the performer, go check out how Spike Jonze made a video for a group called The Far Side called Drop. Mm-hmm. Really amazing. They did the whole thing backwards.
And what does it entail? What did they do backwards?
The whole video.
Oh.
Yeah, it's this rap group. There's 4 of them, and yeah, they basically have to do the whole video backwards.
Wow.
And then they shot it. So it has this very, like you said, dreamlike kind of weird sort of movement to it. And again, just like how much preparation and how much it took for those guys to learn that. That's why I say that's a huge performance element as well, even though it kind of comes through a technical aspect.
Sure. And so we're through 2 out of the 4 kind of criteria that we go through. If it's cool with you guys, I think we'll go ahead and call it an episode this week, a part 1. And sitting at an hour and 20. And I think we can come back for the next one, and we'll do a part 2, if that's okay. And for us, obviously, it'll be a brief break. But for the people at home, you'll have to come back and see us again for Ring versus Ringu, or The Ring versus Ringu. Actually, it'll be in 2 weeks' time. But yeah, so we'll provide a part 2 later on. But we'll take a break here, and I'm going to thank Inky, and I'm going to thank the SR unit for coming in to at least discuss half of this stuff with me now. And we'll see you guys at the next one, where we'll wrap this thing up. But we have a coming soon episode that's going to drop in the middle of these 2 parts. So you're going to have to come back in 2 weeks to get the rest and the final verdict. So we'll see you guys then.